and welcome to Talking Shop, a conversation with educational leaders. My name is Mike Randolph, and I'm the proud principal of the Leesburg High School, and I'm joined by our co-host, Martin Avtuck, the proud principal of Middleburg High School. Martin, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Ready for this rain to stop.
I know, right? You and me both. Although my yard does need it, so my yard is not upset with that. But
I think the high school football schedules are ready for it to be over with. Yeah.
I'll tell you that, you and me both. So we are very lucky, and I am personally excited, and I know Martin is excited too, for today's guest. We are honored to have Mr. Craig Damon, the Executive Director of the Florida High School Athletic Association. Craig, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Martin and Mike, for having me on. I'm very excited for being part of the show today.
We
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much for talking shop with us today. So we're going to jump right in and get started. Can you talk about your journey to the FHSAA and why was it important for you to for you to be involved in high school athletics?
My journey, it's very unique. Let me go back to high school. In my high school days, my mom was a teacher, my aunt was a teacher, my other aunt was a social worker, so everybody was in the education. Education was the last thing when I was going to college that I thought that I would want to go into as far as a career. So I was fortunate enough to receive a football scholarship to Lenore Ryan University. I played Division II football there and played baseball for 3 years there as well. And I got there, I thought I wanted to go into electrical engineering because electrical engineers made a lot of money. So it was like, oh, let's go be an engineer. That freshman year, calculus and physics told me that this is not the career for me. So uh, chose the business administration route and got my bachelor's degree in business administration. And again, I'm from a little small town north of Ocala called Spar. Spar is probably about 700 folks in that town. One four-way stop, a Subway shop. We have a Dollar General and a Spar hardware store. That makes up pretty much the town. So with a business administration degree, coming back home to Florida from Hickory, North Carolina, if I wanted to pursue a career in business, I would probably have to move to Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa, a big city. Never been a big city person, so I went on a couple of job interviews. Did not want to move to the big city, so I was start playing baseball for one of my family friends, some little semi-pro baseball, and he was the warden for the prison in Lowell, the Women's Florida Correction Institute. So he asked me if I was interested in a job, and said yes. I need to make some money. Started doing some accounting at Florida Correction Institution for and back in '91. Started I think in August or September. And when I did, former football coach, coach offensive line for our team when I was a senior, he asked me if I'd be interested in coaching football. Like no, I never thought about it. So he connected me with one of the Pop Warner teams, one of the youth football league teams, and started coaching youth football in '91 and loved it. Did that for 2 years, and then Shelton Cruz, who's executive director of the FHCAA, reached out to me and asked if I'd be interested in coaching at the varsity level at my alma mater, North Marion High. Started coaching there in '93. Did not have any type of education certifications or so forth. So my first job, besides being an assistant coach, was as an academic skills coach, which is a position that is no longer around. But my role was to pull kids out of vocational classes to remediate them in math and English. So did that for a little bit. And that position was a grant position. The grant went away. So then they're like, well, okay, you have a business administration degree. What about teaching keyboarding? So I was a keyboard teacher for about 3 years, teaching keyboard. That was a challenge. And from there, moved into ESC as an ESC teacher. But again, thinking about coaches that inspired me as a student athlete to help me get to the collegiate level and so forth. And then having that experience in '91 coaching little league kids uh, and saw that I could connect with kids, launched my career in the education. Football coach at North Marion for 20 years, AD there for 7, and just out of the blue one day back in pre-planning in early August, we were at a dean's meeting and going over different ways of doing referrals electronically because we used to do the hand referrals and we were transitioning to electronic referrals. And we were on a break, and I like, well, let me go on the FHSA website to see what forms to do when, because there's always a due date on things. So want to take advantage of making sure I was going to be compliant with the due dates. And just so happened when I clicked on the website, there was a classification that has advertising the director of athletics position. And just out of blue, just clicked on it and like started scrolling through it. Like, okay, I have this, I have that degree, I have this, I got this year's experience. So I went home and talked to my wife, like, hey, what do you think about me applying for it? She's like, are you ready to give up football? I was like, well, it's at some point in time I'm going to have to give it up
Yep.
and apply for the job. Got the job, and it's been, first year I think I came on board. They hired me in August, so I got the phone call from Justin Harrison on the Thursday before our fall classic. So I'm sitting in the locker room with some kids, and we're just getting uniforms ready, and this phone number rung. There was a Gainesville number. I'm like, who's this calling my number? I don't recognize the number. So I answered, and it's like, hey, it's Justin Harrison. You got a few moments. I'm like, sure. So I'm like, let me walk outside because I didn't want to say anything for the kids. So we had a conversation. He asked me if I was interested in the job. I'm like, yeah, but you had to give me some time. So I didn't even tell my mom because I knew she would tell somebody. Came home, told my wife. I called my county AD, Ed McPadden, told him about it. And he's like, well, he figured I had a good chance of getting the job. And so then I had to plan the next day, well, how am I going to tell my team? So I called my defense coordinator in and I'm like, hey, listen, I'm taking the job. I'm going to recommend you step in and be interim head coach. I'll be here for the first 2 games of the season, but then September 13th, I start with the association. So that day we were sitting in my office, we were talking about the plans and going over things with him. All of a sudden I see the sports editor from Ocala Star Banner walk by my office, and I'm like, okay, we playing Lake Weir. The Vanguard Forest game is the marquee game in Marion County, and usually the sports editor goes to that game, and one of the other reporters come and cover the other games in the county. And so he walked him off. Like, what are you doing here? We're playing Lake Weir. We're not the marquee game of the week. Why aren't you not the Forest Vanguard? And he's like, Craig, do you think you can sign to go work for the association and me not find out about it? We kept it quiet until after the game, and typically before, when the game's over with, I keep the parents off the field. So I talk to the team, address the team, and then a lot of parents come on the field to talk to kids. So my announcer came over, saw the sports editor there. So he's like, okay, what's going on? There's something going on. So I had to tell him, like, okay, when the game's over, tell the parents to go ahead and come on the field. And so we were sitting there, the game's over, and I'm standing there waiting, and parents just standing at the fence. They would not come on the field. And I'm trying to radio to my administration, can you let the parents come on the field? They would not come on the field. He's announcing it. And finally, at the walk up, like, can y'all please come out here? I got an announcement to make. And shared that announcement. We won those last 2 games. And again, coming in second week of September, fall sports have already started. And I had the fortunate, task of being the administrator of swimming and diving, boys soccer, and softball my first year. Well, swimming and diving takes place in the fall. I'm a football coach, so I never got to go, as AD, never got to go to swim meet. So I had no clue about swim rules when I first took over as the sport administrator for the state of Florida of swimming and diving. So I quickly learned our head meet referee for our state championship event and hit her on speed dial. And anytime I would get a question from a school or a coach about a rule, I would forward it to her. She would give me a response. I would copy and paste it on my email and reply back to the coaches. So learned on the fly a little bit with that. But again, second year did football, girls basketball, track and field. Again, learning, and then the associate executive director position for eligibility and compliance came open. I was satisfied with being in charge of football, basketball, track and field because I'd only been done it for a year. So I was like thinking about the changes I wanted to make, the things I wanted to do, implement, and so forth. And a couple mentors of mine that worked in the office, Dr. Peggy Jones and Linda Robertson, they like, you should apply. And I was like, well, no, I'm good where I'm at. Just let me keep doing what I'm doing. And the last day, I think, before it closed, I went ahead and applied and, interviewed, got the job, did that for 7 years. And then when the executive director position came open, I was still satisfied with being eligible in compliance, doing my thing and changes that I wanted to make. I thought we had things going in the right direction in that department. We were no longer considered the bad guys that just sent out bad punishments. We were more of an educator, and we had formed relationships with our schools. Um, Again, got talked into it by those two ladies, who I have the greatest respect for, applied for it and got the job. So it's been a great experience. I try to, people tell you don't forget where you came from. I think about my times as a student athlete, think about my times as an assistant coach when I hated the FHSAA, because I thought they only wanted to fine us and sanction folks. Then when I became head coach, I got more involved with committees, and then my attitude changed a little bit more. Then it was just, well, I just want to get the percentage of the gate for the classics and our playoff games. They got to take our money and don't do anything for it. Again, the more experience, the more involved and engaged I got with the association, the better understanding I had for it. It's now, again, thinking about role as a student athlete, role as an assistant coach, role as a head coach, as an AD, as a parent of two student athletes. Thinking about all those different roles. So when I make decisions now, I don't take it lightly about each of those different roles and how it may impact the specific group of students. I try to always keep that at the forefront. Is every decision you make is going to impact somebody's child or somebody's husband or somebody's wife, and try to keep that in mind and stay humble with all the things that we do. Sorry for the long
Absolutely.
answer.
No, no,
No,
no,
it's
no.
perfect.
Thank you for that. That was perfect. And I can tell you, I think we all have the same experience from our wife of being asked, "Are you ready to quit coaching for your
Yes,
next step?" I know that
yes,
I was asked that. I know Martin was asked that. So when we got into administration, so at some point, we've always said the best administrators start as coaches at some
yes.
point. So it sounds like in your role, that's true there as well.
We all
So
got to hang out
thank
the
you for
cleats or
sharing that.
whistles at some point.
I know, right?
Yes, we do. And you want to do it
Absolutely.
on your terms, not with when a principal's
100%.
calling you, tap you on the shoulder, like, okay, can you come to my office and bring your keys with you when you do come? So
That's true. And mine was my wife tapping me on my shoulder and saying, "Hey, it's time for you to go into that principal's office and go into that
yep,
administration seat." So,
true. Hmm.
Craig,
yes.
Craig, can you kind of tell us, like, all right, let's say we got a principal who's brand new to high school or doesn't really understand, like, what is the FHSA? And this is a loaded question. What does
Okay.
the FHSA do? Like, what do you consider like your role dealing with high schools and junior highs? How would you explain that in like a quick little blurb?
Quick little blurb. We try to be an extension of the classroom.
Got
Athletics
it.
is considered to be an extension of the classroom, and I share with our staff that we have a partnership with our member schools. We play a supporting role of our member schools and the principal and so forth to provide our student athletes with a full high school experience. So the big thing I would share with new principals is athletics is it's it plays a huge role in the culture of your school. If you have a great athletic program, you use the school culture is usually pretty good. So when you're thinking about, hiring coaches, you want to hire good people that's going to do the right things, and but also bring a positive vibe to that sport, which also will have a positive vibe to your school. Former mentor of mine used to be assistant principal. He used to always tell me, like, football sets the bar for the rest of the school year. If the
100%.
football team gets off to a good start, there's not a lot of ejections, not a lot of fights, suspensions, winning games. Usually, the school you don't have that many fights in school. If you have to get off to a rough start in football, you can count on that year to be a terrible year.
For,
Everything related to it.
Former superintendent I used to work with, that's what he said. Like the most important, the first Friday night is the most important night of the year at a high school. It sets the
Sets
tone
the
for the
tone
year.
for the year. Yes, it
But we
does.
want zero. We want zero ejections, right? We don't want any of those.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're working for zero rejections.
And for principals, to me, my word of advice for a new principal is to get involved. Call and ask questions. I mean, yes, you've hired an AD to do a job, but the AD should not know more than you know. You should at least have a foundation for the handbook and some of the basic rules in there, because your AD could be misinterpreting the rules, and you have 100% confidence in that person, and then now you're facing a sanction or violation because you don't have at least a base understanding of the association.
100%.
Absolutely. So, next question. What is the process for creating and implementing any new rules or changes to existing rules for the FHSAA?
A lot of our rule changes, bylaws, and policies both start in our advisory committees, whether it's the sport advisory committee, it could be the athletic directors advisory committee, or our sports medicine advisory committee. For proposals, a change in bylaw policy, there's a 2-year process where it goes in front of that sports advisory committee and they bring it forth as action item and it comes out of there favorable. Then it goes to our athletic directors advisory committee and they look at it and they can either vote to endorse it or vote to not endorse it. It goes back the second year to that same committee just to see if anything needs to be tweaked. Have we reshot and vetted the change that we're talking about putting in place to make sure it's something that all of our schools are comfortable with, or the majority of our schools are comfortable with. Comes back to that sport advisor, well, the athletic director advisory committee for a second reading, and then it can come forward to our board of directors for them to either vote it up or vote it down. That's sort of the process for change. If there's something that we feel is, I feel is for the safety of a program or change, it can go within a year, right away. But if it's just, for example, we're going to widen the short or tighten the goalposts. They're not as wide. We're going to go to college with goalposts. That's something that would go through a 2-year process just to make sure that we've vetted it properly and gotten, responses from all of our constituents.
Fantastic. And thank you for explaining that process. And that leads to our next question,
Yeah. So tell
which
us.
is,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, so that leads to the NIL, name, image,
hmm
and likeness process, which just was adopted by the FHSA and just went into play, I believe, this July, August. Correct? So, can you talk about that process and what do you expect to occur from NIL, and how do you expect not only private schools but public schools to be able to handle
Name, image, and likeness has been a topic of discussion for several years. Back when it first hit the collegiate scene, I was in eligibility and compliance, and the thought was, oh, what would that look like in Florida? And, a big fear, big anxiety was with school choice and open transfers throughout the state of Florida. It was a little scary at first, thinking about, because again, the only example we had to look for was what we saw at the collegiate level. So looking at the collegiate level from high school, like, oh, okay, is that what it's supposed to look like? Now we don't want it to be that
No,
type of deal
they don't know
where
what
we
they're
use that
doing.
as recruiting tool. So we took a step back in some other states, California, some of the other New York, some of those others jumped out there on it. I wanted to get ahead of it. Louisiana put things in place, and there's 51 state associations in the country. So some of the 48 other state associations started like, well, let's let them try it out a little bit and see how it goes. Then a few more jumped on board, and it just came to a point where I was talking with the executive director, Robin Hines from Georgia, and he's like, "Well, Craig, what's the difference in a kid that's in band? Kid could be in your band program or your chorus program and have a professional career singing and doing things on social media and getting paid for it. But why we won't allow our athletes to do that? Why we won't allow our athletes to use their social media presence to make money?" And he's like, "Well, what's the difference in a kid? Like, do you guys control whether a kid go to Publix and get a job or Chick-fil-A?" It's like, no. So for us, that sort of helped me a little bit and I try to remind myself when I get a little anxious about it that it's no different than having a part-time job. You're either performing a task or service and getting paid for it. If you're not performing a task or service, then yes, that's an issue because now that is like the collegiate level where you're getting paid for your roster, name being on a roster. In Florida, we're not roster. You're not getting compensated for your name being on a roster. You should be providing some form of a service or task. And if that's not the case, then you're probably violating policy 36, 37, and it's a recruiting tactic to get you to attend that school. So
How many
for
NIL?
thinking about it, looking at what I anticipate, I think probably 75%, 80% of our NIL deals are going to be with local restaurants and businesses where Craig Damon has a 10,000 person social media following. And, Martin, you own the local pizza shop. And hey, Craig, if you come in and you take a picture when you eat pizza, your pizza's free. You don't have to pay for your pizza. I'll give you a free pizza once a week when you come in to post on your social media account because if you post on your social media account, your 10,000 friends see you eating pizza there, 2 or 3 may come in and buy a pizza. So my return on investment is a whole lot better than me putting a commercial on TV or buying an ad in a newspaper or magazine. So that's what we anticipate. However, we are going to be cognizant and be aware for of folks that are using it as a recruiting tool to try to get a kid to attend a school or stay at a school from that
I would have
standpoint.
loved some free pizza from Manny's in New Smyrna Beach back in 1997. That would have been awesome. Spent a lot of money there. Do you guys have a lot of those deals? Like, can you tell us how many deals you have like registered now, and then what that process looks like? It's just so
Right
it's like
now,
so
we
wild. Yeah.
correct. Right now, this first year is going to be, we know that it's going to be a learning process. When we did the bylaw, one of the things that we left out was a registration process. So we submitted that for our upcoming board meeting on the 22nd, 23rd to, that's one of the things the State Board of Education charged me with was how you gonna keep track of it? Like, well, we didn't think about a registration process. So they tasked us with that. So that's going back in front of the board. Right now, we have a form that's out that's called a GA1 form that's on our website on for parents to use. And basically it's a 3-page form. The first 2 pages is the bylaw. Because we feel with it being a new law that the parents need to have that in their hands to know exactly what the rules are. And it also states the penalties. First strike, it's slap on the wrist, take it down, blah, 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 return the money. Second strike, you could lose eligibility for a year. Third strike, now you're losing eligibility for your high school career. In order to help educate folks, we felt that we wanted to put the rule in their hand. Then the third page is basically the parent fills out the top part, and it's basically acknowledging that I have received the rules, I read the rules, I understand the rules, I understand any type of sanctions that may come along with it. I think we added a line to say what company you have a deal with, and then the bottom part of the page is for the school to fill out. The AD, they turn it into the AD, and the AD at the school will either say, yes, we give permission, our school district gives permission for you to use our logo, our name, our property, or no, you can't, and email a copy to our office and keep a copy on file. And that's right now, at least right now, that's our registration process. It could change and be, electronic, coming up in the future, but right now for this year, that's what we're looking to do. And again, our board will meet on the 22nd, 3rd, and vote to make that a requirement. Right now, strongly recommend it because it's not in bylaw as a requirement. So the thought is on the 22nd, 23rd to make it a requirement.
That's
I
exciting.
love how you have so much education at the beginning of that process for parents and for scholars, just so that they truly know the rules and what they're getting into. And like you said earlier, the FHSAA is simply an extension of the classroom. So really educating parents on the NIL rules before they agree to accept it, and educating parents on the penalties as well, I think is a pro tip, so that any parent that chooses to pursue that for their student athlete, they know exactly what they're getting involved in.
And I love the comparison to a part-time job and talking about like, yeah, there are kids that are actors or they've got those social media followers. Like, it makes sense when you look at it those terms, because we all think about, okay, college football and how it's kind of changed
Yes.
the game there. When you think about you've got like some kids that play international soccer that are in middle school and high school. Like, that's an opportunity for them to take advantage of that. Let's talk about officials. Parents coming to me all the time, and they complain about the referees and this and that, and I will just tell them blatantly, like, you realize that people are not just signing up in droves to take these jobs on. It's very difficult, and especially dealing with parents. Like, I'll just call out soccer. It's every soccer parent, they know everything about soccer. And
as a soccer dad, yes, I do know that. Yes, I try not to be that parent, but yes, yes.
So, what are some ways you guys are looking to grow, official training programs? And then, how do you guys see this? Because it is an issue.
It is an issue. In the 11 years I've been in the association, it's an issue every year. When we go to our summer meetings with the national meetings in the summer, every state talks about the issue, the shortage of officials, the average age growing higher each year. So what we done over the summer, we started talking about it, and we made a decision that we wanted to create an officials department. Before Jeremy Hernandez, we brought him on staff a few years ago, and he was the person that was designated as officials, and we gave him one sport. Now he has 2 sports and still trying to do officials. So we were looking to make that create a department and put somebody in charge of it. And Justin Harrison came to me like, Craig, let me do it. He's been a part of it when he was in athletics. The past
He's a
2 years, he's
Swiss
been in
Army knife.
eligibility compliance. So
Mhm.
now Justin is strictly officials. He has no other responsibilities, no other duties. He has a lady that works with him, and hopefully in the future we'll be able to hire another person. But we want to create a department where he can get out and go to some of their meetings, get to see some of the officials, go to some of their trainings, and work on recruiting more officials, but also retaining the officials that we have. We see a lot of young officials that come in and they do a couple of years, and for either some reason or another reason, either they go to the collegiate level. Some go because they feel the administration of the association they're part of don't put them or don't recommend them for the championship games. But instead, they push them down instead of letting them elevate up. And some of our old officials rolling from officiating on the field to mentoring our younger officials. And that's something, a goal of ours. But right now, some of our associations, the older ones, just keep pushing younger guys down. So they go to collegiate level. We never get to see those younger guys. So that's one of the things that Justin is planning on doing, going out to some of the meetings and encouraging more of the young officials to be more involved, to understand what goes on so that we can put them in positions where we're not losing them to the collegiate level, but they're staying down and coaching with us. Several of our counties have, Orange County for one, has instituted an officials program within the school district where they partner with Ref Reps, who's a partner with us, and they provide the curriculum for the student athletes, which has been approved by the Department of Education. And for example, I'm trying to remember the school, Olympia. Yeah, Olympia in Orlando, Russ Wombles. I went by their class. They have two classes, about 60 kids, and several of their players, their students, are working as an official as a part-time job. The one kid that I was there for one of their classes, he's like, he used to work at McDonald's and he would work 5 days a week and make $65, $75. By the time it was all over, $100 for the week. When he goes and work the soccer tournament league games on a Saturday, and then one Saturday make $150, $200 just one Saturday. So it's a sport that he loved, and he's getting paid for it. So he's like, I only work one day a week. I don't need to work, every night of the week and have to struggle with homework and so forth after getting off of work. So we tried to encourage that, and we shared those licenses with more counties and more school districts as here's a way that we can get kids that are not going to go play at the next level in a sport, but love being a part of sport and looking for a way of making some income. And it's a great opportunity for our student athletes. So that's something we're looking to push, as well as recruit and retain our officials.
That's an excellent strategy.
And to share
For
a story with you about parents, it's fans. I ain't gonna say parents, just fans. Fans have gotten out of control all across the country. It doesn't matter what level, whether it's the Pop Warner League or it's the professional league. But what some of the things that are taking place. One of our was at a summer meeting, and one of the executive directors, I can't remember which state it was, one of his schools instituted a very neat process. So they use the soccer theory, the yellow card, red card. So when fans come in the game, everybody gets a
Some
yellow
cards.
card. Gets a yellow card, a little business size card that says, "This is how we expect you to behave," and so forth on the yellow card. And they have student ambassadors that are at the game, and when they see a parent that's yelling at the officials and doing stuff wrong, they go give them a red card, and you're done. You don't come back to any more games. So that has been very, very impactful and had a positive touch on their fan interaction with officials and their
I
sportsmen.
love it.
I love that. And again, going back to FHSAA serves as an extension of the classroom. So that's just educating the parents on the expectations and letting them know very clearly this is how you're expected to behave. Here's the consequences for if you don't. But starting off on yellow, I love that. That's a great pro tip there. So, next question. How does FHSA, so I'm a rugby player, right?
Mm-hmm.
I played rugby in college. How does the FHSAA determine new high school and middle school sports for the state?
It's in our policy. If we have to be a recognized sport, we must have 10% of our membership with send a letter to our office on the school letterhead stating that they want to start that sport. They've been doing it as a club level at the school, and the 10% of the student member of our member schools. So we have 832, so 83 schools between two sections of the state must put in writing that they want to start the sport. It comes back to our board, and our board can vote to make it a a recognized sport, which means that we could allow it to be recognized, but not necessarily have a state championship until they played a couple of years. To become a sanctioned sport, I think it goes up to 20%, and the schools must show that they've been playing in games and contests for a couple of years without any issues before it becomes a sanctioned sport.
Tell us,
Outstanding.
tell us,
Go
like,
ahead.
what's right now? What is the fastest growing sport in the state of Florida?
Flag football by far,
Yes.
and it's the fastest growing sport across the country. The NFL has invested millions of dollars in the sport of flag football, promoting it. They've even the past few years went on a campaign of Nike, partnering up with Nike and providing free uniforms for schools that want to start up flag football. The marketing theory behind that, we were talking with one of the execs in the Players Professionals Association. It was that if they can introduce flag football to girls and get girls to like it and feel comfortable with it, those girls are going to become moms at some point in time. And those moms will feel more comfortable letting their little boys play tackle football when they get of age. So the thought is, let's catch these girls now, introduce them to flag football, let them feel that flag football is safe. We know with all of the technology with helmets and so forth, now it's safer today than it's ever been. That will lead to an increase in participation in tackle football in the years to come.
Absolutely. And
Makes
I can
sense.
tell you, my eighth grade daughter, this is her second year playing flag football. She'll be playing in the high school. What's your take on the crowns or the helmets for flag football? I know my daughter wears the crown for flag
hmm
football. What's your take on that? And is there a plan to make that mandatory down the road?
Right now, there's not a plan to make it mandatory. It is permissible. I would just got nominated on the Sports Medicine Advisory Committee for the National Federation. I'm quite sure that'll be,
Congratulations.
thank you, something that will be discussed. The pros and cons of folks wearing it. At least right now, it'll still be optional, but it wouldn't surprise me at some point in time if, with girls being more aggressive as they get to playing that it might be something
Hmm.
that's required.
I
Absolutely. I
loved
can tell you my Riley's very aggressive, so.
we started flag
And
football.
and also with flag football being an Olympic, gonna be in the Olympics and
Yep.
Hmm.
coming up, and there's several junior colleges and NAIA schools offering scholarships. We were told this past week that the NCAA is real close to making a Division One, offer
Yep.
Division One scholarships with it. So it's going to continue to grow at a fast pace.
Well, we started
The
flag
one that
football in
we've
Polk
gotten the
County.
most requests for is pickleball. I get a phone
Oh yeah,
call
yeah,
each
yeah.
week about adding
We got a
pickleball.
club. We got a club. We got a club for that. I love seeing
I
like
could
all
see that one.
the different groups of girls. Like when we started it with the school I was at, was athletic director. Like you had the
hmm
cheerleaders with the basketball players, with the track kids, with it,
Yep.
just the all of them coming together was so cool.
Yeah, and it's by far Florida is light years ahead of all the other states in flag girls flag football. I mean, we've had some teams. Nike did a commercial with some of the teams out of Tampa, Alonzo and Robinson.
Yeah, it's big down there.
Nike invited two of our teams last fall for kick off the football season, where they had invited a team out of Texas and Louisiana to play tackle football at out in Oregon at Beavertown, and then they wanted a flag football game before it. But Texas, it was just starting flag football. Louisiana, the school that they had invited was not part of the Louisiana Association, so they paid for two Florida teams to come out and play each other on TV before the tackle football game.
Nice.
That's outstanding, and just
Yeah.
what an outstanding growth for flag football, and especially having it in the 28 Olympics here in Los Angeles. That's going to be
Yes.
huge over the next 4 years. So we have a couple more questions.
Okay.
What's the greatest challenge to high school sports moving forward?
To remain relevant, right now with travel ball and the opportunities to play for a national championship and to just travel all over the country with our travel teams and so forth is trying to replicate something similar to that from an educational standpoint. So that's a topic of discussion at every one of our executive director meetings is how to remain relevant, because part of the deal is we talked about it this weekend. One of the last comments was that it's going to require us to change a little bit. You got to be willing to change. And the added that folks say that things that don't change become extinct.
Hmm.
Adapt or
And
die.
so It's like the dinosaur
Yes.
syndrome.
Yep.
If you're not willing to change, at some point in time you'll become extinct. So we're trying to adapt without losing our key goals and morals of what education based athletics is all about, but also trying to provide some of those opportunities. So I would foresee in the next few years where may see some national tournaments, with teams, state champions playing state champions from other states to try to provide our kids with a similar type of experience that they're getting from club.
Craig, what's the
That's
best part of your job?
outstanding, and I would love that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
What's the best part of your job? Like, when you're having a rough day, what do you kind of go to?
A rough day. I got pictures of my grandkids. So grandkids in the office tend to keep things relevant and calm me down because at the end of the day, the rules and stuff that we make, decisions that we make, at some point in time, they're going to be impacted by those rules because they'll be athletes. I have a couple of folks in the office that I'll get up and go take a walk around the building or come go walking with me or throw my earphones on with some music and go walk to the end of the road and back. But you just gotta to remember that they don't take it personal. Some of the things, the comments, the critics and so forth, they're just voicing their opinion. Hear it, filter out, get what you need to get from it, and keep moving forward.
Well, Craig, I just want to tell you, I think you're doing an amazing job, and shout out for being nominated to the NFHS Sports Advisory Committee for for sports medicine. So shout out to that. I think you guys are doing an amazing job. I value the FHSAA. I know we value the FHSAA. As you can see by our state championship rings, our 8 of them that we have here. So
I'm sorry.
yes, shameless.
I left my 2 at school. I apologize.
Shameless
My father
plug, right? So, but no, we appreciate the opportunities that the FHSAA has provided for our scholar athletes, and really the educational piece and the leadership piece. Can you talk about the Leadership Academy that you've really done for your scholar athletes and how important that is to build leaders amongst your scholars?
Academic all-state kids that come in, we pick 12 boys, 12 girls, and come in and then you have a overall winner. We developed a community program, which is basically set it out as be a foundation where we could provide some more opportunities, scholarship opportunities for student athletes. When you think about the academics, our top kids in the state are getting millions and millions of dollars in scholarships. So the little scholarship we get from us is almost like not anywhere close to what they get from other folks. So with this community program that we're looking to bring on board, we're looking to hit some of those first generation kids that are going to the next level at college, looking for some turnaround kids that maybe freshman, sophomore year were not eligible, were just getting in trouble, and all of a sudden the light bulb came on and turned it around. And trying to provide a way to focus and spotlight some of those kids because they're not going to be the 4.5, 5.5 GPA kids, but they're good, solid kids that have either made a bad choice early and light bulb came on and turned it around. But trying to find a way to also recognize those type of accomplishments as well because they're just as important as that kid that has a 5.5 GPA. At the end of the day, we want to see those kids be successful at the end and receive an education, leave our system with some good core values that will help them be great citizens in our community. And anything that we can do as far as an association from an athletic standpoint to help support our schools, to be a partner with our schools to get that happen. That's what our focus is on.
Well, again, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today, really focusing on how FHSAA serves as that extension to the classroom for our scholar athletes and for our parents. So thank you for really diving deep into that and for joining us today on Talking Shop. So this was Talking Shop, a conversation with educational leaders. My name is Mike Randolph, and I'm the proud principal of the Leesburg High School. And we have Martin Avtuck, our co-host, who is the proud principal of Middleburg High School. And we're joined today by Craig Damon, the executive director of the Florida High School Athletic Association. Thank you so much for joining us today, Craig. Have a
Thanks
great
again,
night,
Craig.
and go Jackets. Thank you.
See you guys.
Go Broncos.